The downtown subway always smelled like wet concrete and old coffee. I'd been riding it for 30 years, back when my knees still worked right, and I didn't need to lean against the pole like some broken flagpole. That Tuesday morning, I was heading to pick up parts for a restoration job when I saw her. My daughter, Emily. She was standing near the far doors, holding my grandson tight against her chest. The kid was maybe 3 now, wearing a little blue jacket I'd bought him last Christmas. But it wasn't the kid that made my stomach drop. It was her face. She looked terrified. Not the normal tired parent look. Not the stressed about bills expression I'd seen on 1,000 working mothers. This was different. Her eyes kept darting to the doors at every stop. Her shoulders were hunched like she expected someone to grab her from behind. When our eyes met, she went white. I pushed through the morning crowd. A businessman gave me a dirty look when I bumped his briefcase. I didn't care. "Em?" I said when I reached her. She flinched. Actually flinched at my voice. "Dad." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "Taking the train to Newark. They're same as every Tuesday." I looked down at my grandson. He was staring at me with those big brown eyes, thumb in his mouth. "Hey, buddy, why aren't you using the car I gave you?" The question hung there between us like smoke. Emily had always been terrible at lying. Even as a kid, she'd get this look on her face right before she tried to tell me she hadn't eaten the last cookie or that she'd definitely finished her homework. She had that look now, only worse. "The car?" She stopped. Started again. "We don't have it anymore." "What do you mean you don't have it?" I kept my voice level. Around us, people were reading their phones, listening to music, existing in their own little bubbles. Nobody cared about one old man and his daughter. "I put that title in your name 2 years ago. It's yours." "Dad, please." She glanced at the doors again. The train was slowing for the next stop. "Can we not do this here?" But I'd already seen too much. The way she held my grandson wasn't protective. It was desperate. The way her free hand kept touching her phone in her pocket, like she was checking if someone had called. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes for more than a second. "Emily." I put my hand on her shoulder. She was shaking. "What happened to the car?" The doors opened. A few people got off. More people got on. The usual morning shuffle. Emily looked at those doors like they were the gates of hell itself. "They took it," she said finally. "Who's they?" "Brandon and his mother." Her voice dropped so low I almost couldn't hear it over the train's acceleration. "They took my car. They said if I didn't give them the keys, they'd tell everyone about our family, about things that aren't even true. They said they'd make sure I lost custody." The train rattled through the tunnel. Somewhere above us, people were drinking their morning coffee and worrying about their spreadsheets and whether they'd make it to their kid's soccer game. Down here, in the artificial light and recycled air, my daughter had just told me that her husband and mother-in-law were threatening her. Brandon, my son-in-law, the guy who'd promised to take care of her, who'd stood in a rented tuxedo and said vows about love and loyalty and all that other garbage people say before they show you who they really are. "They're using your family as leverage?" I said. She nodded. A tear ran down her cheek. She wiped it away fast, like she was afraid someone would see. "And you gave them the car." "I had to." Her voice cracked. "Dad, you don't understand. His mother, she knows everyone. She has connections. She said she could make things happen. Bad things. To me, to you, to Mom. She said if I didn't cooperate, She'd what?" Emily looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Not of her husband's mother. Of me. "She said you were dangerous," Emily whispered. "She said you had a temper, that you'd done things, bad things. She showed me. She had papers, Dad, documents. She made it sound like you were... like I was what? Like you were unstable." The word hit me like a gut punch. Unstable. That's what they'd been telling her. That's why she'd been distant for the past year. Why she'd stopped calling as much. Why she'd made excuses every time I wanted to visit. They'd been working on her. Slowly, carefully, turning my own daughter against me. "And you believed her," I said. I didn't know what to believe. She was crying now, trying to keep it quiet so my grandson wouldn't notice. "You have to understand, she's very convincing. And Brandon, he backed her up. He said you were trying to control my life, that you'd always been overbearing, that I needed to establish boundaries." The train pulled into another station. The doors opened. I watched people flow in and out like water. "Where are you going right now?" I asked. "To Brandon's mother's house. She's watching him today while I work." She said the word work like it hurt. "You don't have a job." "I do now. Brandon got me one. At his mother's friend's office. Filing papers. I looked at her. Really looked. The nice clothes I'd seen her wear last year were gone. She was in cheap jeans and a worn sweater. Her hair needed a cut. She'd lost weight, but not the good kind. The kind that comes from stress and not eating right. "Emily," I said slowly, "when's the last time you had your own money?" She didn't answer. "When's the last time you bought something without asking Brandon first?" She looked away. "When's the last time you felt safe?" "Dad, stop." "No." I stepped closer. The train was moving again, swaying slightly. "I'm not going to stop. Look at me." She did, and I saw it all there in her face. Every indignity, every small cruelty, every moment she'd swallowed her pride and told herself it was fine, it was normal, it was just how marriage worked. "Don't worry," I said quietly. "They'll regret it." Her eyes went wide. "Dad, don't do anything stupid. Please, if you make trouble, they'll what? Take your car? Already done. Threaten your family? Already doing it. Isolate you from everyone who actually gives a damn? Check." I kept my voice calm, conversational, like we were talking about the weather. "Tell me, Em, what exactly is left for them to take?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Everything," she whispered. The train was slowing for my stop. I could see the platform through the windows. I could get off, go pick up my parts, pretend this conversation never happened, go back to my workshop and my quiet life and my comfortable ignorance. I didn't get off. "Which stop is his mother's house?" I asked. "Dad, which stop?" "Riverside. But you can't—" "I'm not going to do anything stupid." I smiled at her. The same smile I'd given her when she was 6 and some kid at school had been bullying her. The smile that said someone was about to learn a very important lesson. "I'm just going to talk." Emily grabbed my arm. "Dad, please. You don't know what she's capable of." "And she doesn't know what I'm capable of." I gently pried her fingers off my jacket. "It's going to be fine, Em. Trust me." "That's what scares me," she said. The train pulled into Riverside Station. I stepped onto the platform. Before the doors closed, I turned back to her. "Give me the address," I said. She did. Of course she did. Because despite everything they'd told her, despite all the poison they'd dripped into her ear for the past year, some part of her still knew the truth. I was her father, and fathers protect their daughters, even when their daughters are too scared to ask. The doors closed. The train pulled away. I stood there on the platform, watching it disappear into the tunnel. My knee was aching, my back hurt. I was 56 years old, and I had a restoration job waiting and a dozen other things I should be doing. But right now, all I could think about was the look on Emily's face, that terrified, beaten-down expression, like she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. People think threats fade when you get older. They don't. They just get stupid. I pulled out my phone and texted my buddy Rick, told him I'd be late for the parts pickup. Then I looked up the address Emily had given me, 20 minutes by foot, less if I didn't baby my knee. I started walking. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The house wasn't what I expected. I'd been picturing some mansion, something that screamed money and power. Instead, it was a big suburban colonial in one of those neighborhoods where every lawn looked exactly the same and every mailbox was the regulation height. The kind of place where people smiled at you and then called the cops if you parked too long in front of their house. Brandon's car was in the driveway. A black Lexus I knew he'd financed at probably 3 points too high because he was too proud to shop around. Next to it was Emily's Honda. My Honda, the one I'd spent 2 months fixing up before I gave it to her as a wedding present. Seeing it there made something twist in my chest. I walked past the house once, got the lay of the land. 2-story, probably 4 bedrooms, attached garage, decent yard, curtains drawn on the front windows, no security cameras that I could see, which was either stupid or they were well hidden. On my second pass, I saw movement through a gap in the curtains, someone walking past. Then I heard it. Laughter, music, they were having a party. At 11 in the morning on a Tuesday. I walked up the driveway and listened. The sounds were coming from the back. I followed the side path, staying close to the house. There was a gate to the backyard, but it wasn't locked. I pushed it open and stepped through. The backyard was full of people, maybe 20 of them, scattered across the patio and lawn, drinking, talking, having a grand old time. I recognized a few faces. Brandon's friends from college, his mother's country club buddies, all of them dressed like they were attending a casual yacht party instead of a Tuesday morning gathering. Brandon was holding court near the grill, gesturing with a beer bottle while he told some story. People were laughing, nodding, hanging on his every word like he was performing Shakespeare instead of probably bragging about himself. I moved along the fence line, staying in the shadows. Nobody noticed me. They were all too focused on Brandon and his performance. "So she's standing there," Brandon was saying, crying about her car, like I'm supposed to feel bad. And I'm like, "Emily, grow up. It's just a car." But she can't let it go. She's always so dramatic about everything. More laughter. Someone said something I couldn't quite hear. Brandon grinned. "Oh, her father gave it to her. Yeah. Thinks he's some kind of hero, I guess. Like giving his daughter a used Honda makes him father of the year." He took a long drink from his beer. "Guy's a piece of work, honestly. Can't hold down a real job. Spends all his time in that dump of a workshop, playing with rusty tools. Emily's embarrassed by him, but she's too nice to say it." My hands clenched. I forced them to relax. "The mother-in-law situation must be rough," someone said. Brandon waved his hand dismissively. "Nah, my mom handles her fine. Emily just needs to learn how things work. You can't let people like that have leverage over you. You take what's yours, and you don't apologize for it." A woman in a sundress raised her glass. "To taking what's yours." "To taking what's yours," the group echoed. I watched Brandon clink his beer bottle against a dozen glasses, watched him soak in the attention, watched him perform for his audience like he was the star of his own little reality show. And I realized something. He wasn't dangerous. Not really. He was just a small man who'd found a way to feel big. Take away his audience, take away his mother's backing, take away the social circle that validated his garbage behavior, and he'd crumble. But before I could think about that too deeply, someone grabbed my arm. "Can I help you?" I turned. A guy in a polo shirt was standing there, looking at me like I'd just climbed out of a dumpster, which, considering I was in work clothes and covered in tunnel dust from the subway, wasn't entirely unfair. "Just looking for someone," I said calmly. "This is a private party." He tightened his grip on my arm. "You need to leave." "Sure, no problem. Soon as I talk to Brandon." "I don't think so." He pulled harder, trying to steer me back toward the gate. "Come on, old man. Don't make this difficult." I looked at his hand on my arm, then at him, then back at his hand. "You're going to want to let go," I said. "Or what?" That's when I did something I probably shouldn't have done. But after hearing Brandon talk about my daughter like she was some kind of burden, after seeing all these people laugh and drink using what I knew was Emily's dignity as entertainment, I wasn't in a charitable mood. I grabbed Polo Shirt's wrist with my free hand and twisted. Not hard, just enough to make the point. He yelped and let go, stumbling back. "What the hell, man?" The backyard went quiet. Everyone turned to look. Brandon's face went from confused to angry in about half a second. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "I'm the guy who gave Emily that car you're so proud of stealing," I said. Recognition dawned on Brandon's face. Oh, this is perfect. Guys, this is Emily's dad, the unstable one I was telling you about." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Some people started edging toward the house. Others pulled out their phones. In this neighborhood, I probably had about 5 minutes before someone called the cops. I didn't need 5 minutes. "Unstable," I repeated. "That's a nice word. Your mother teach you that?" Brandon set his beer down and walked toward me. He was younger than me, taller than me, and surrounded by friends. He probably thought that mattered. "You need to leave," he said. "This is private property." "So is Emily's car. But that didn't stop you, did it? That car is community property. We're married. What's hers is mine." "Funny how that works. What's hers is yours. But somehow your money is still your money." Brandon's jaw tightened. "You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you took her car. I know you control her bank account. And I know your mother threatens her with legal action if she steps out of line." I stepped closer. "And I know that about half the stuff you're grilling out here today was bought with gifts I gave to Emily." "That's not... the grill? I bought that for her birthday last year. The patio furniture, Christmas, that cooler full of beer, Father's Day gift." I pointed at each item in turn. "Should I keep going?" Brandon's face was red now. "Get out." "Or what? You'll call your mother? Tell her the dangerous father-in-law is scaring you?" Someone in the crowd laughed. Just a quick snort. Quickly covered. But Brandon heard it. And I saw something flicker in his eyes. Embarrassment. "Good." "Last chance," Brandon said. "Leave now, or I'm calling the cops." "Go ahead, call them. I'd love to explain to them how you're using property that doesn't belong to you, how you're financially controlling your wife, how your mother is blackmailing her to keep quiet." I smiled. "But yeah, I'm the problem here." Brandon lunged at me. I'd been expecting it. Young guys like him, they couldn't handle being challenged in front of their friends. Their egos were too fragile. So when he came at me with his fists up like he was in some action movie, I just stepped aside. He stumbled past me and nearly fell into the fence. "Jesus Christ," someone muttered. Brandon spun around, face purple with rage. "You son of a... Brandon!" A woman's voice cut through the air like a whip crack. "That's enough." Everyone froze. A woman was standing on the patio. Late 50s, perfect hair, expensive jewelry, and eyes like a shark. She looked at me the way you'd look at something you found on your shoe. Brandon's mother. Had to be. "You must be Emily's father," she said pleasantly. "I've heard so much about you." "All lies, I'm sure." "Oh, I don't know about that." She walked down the patio steps with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been challenged in her life. "Emily's been quite forthcoming about your, shall we say, temperamental nature. Funny, she never mentioned you were a manipulative blackmailer." The pleasant smile didn't waver. "That's quite an accusation." "It's not an accusation if it's true." She stopped a few feet away from me, close enough to talk without shouting, far enough that Brandon couldn't accidentally punch her if he decided to try another swing at me. "Let me be very clear," she said quietly. "Emily is my son's wife. What happens in their marriage is none of your concern. If you continue to interfere, I will make sure you regret it. I have lawyers, I have friends in very useful places, and I have documentation of every questionable thing you've ever done. Do you really want to test me?" I looked at her. Really looked, and I saw it. The same thing I'd seen in a dozen foremen, 100 petty tyrants with clipboards and authority complexes. She was used to winning because people were too scared or too tired to fight back. "You know what your problem is?" I said. "Enlighten me." "You think threats work on everyone. You think if you push hard enough, people will just fold, and maybe that works on most people. Maybe it even worked on Emily for a while." I leaned in slightly. "But I'm not most people, and I spent 30 years dealing with men tougher and smarter than your son. So when you try to threaten me, all you're doing is showing me you're scared." Her eyes narrowed. "I'm not scared of you. You should be." "Is that a threat?" "No, it's a promise." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Brandon? Enjoy the car while you can. I've got the registration papers. You're driving stolen property." "That's not how it works," Brandon shouted after me, but I was already walking away. Behind me, I could hear Brandon's mother talking in low, urgent tones, probably explaining how they needed to be more careful, how I was more of a problem than they'd anticipated. Good. I wanted them worried. I wanted them second-guessing. I wanted them to spend the next few days looking over their shoulders, because people who are worried make mistakes. And I was very good at waiting for mistakes. The ballroom was everything I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, too many people in expensive clothes pretending to care about sick children while really just seeing and being seen. A string quartet played something classical in the corner. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and tiny food that probably cost $20 per bite. I grabbed a glass of champagne I had no intention of drinking and found a spot near one of the pillars where I could watch without being too obvious about it. Evelyn was holding court near the silent auction tables. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my rent and was surrounded by a group of women who laughed at everything she said. Every few minutes, someone new would approach her. She'd greet them with perfect warmth, say something that made them smile, and send them away feeling like they'd just had an audience with royalty. She was good. I had to give her that. Brandon was there too, standing slightly behind his mother like a prop. He looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo, kept tugging at his collar. Every time someone approached Evelyn, he'd straighten up and try to look important, but nobody was really looking at him. I watched them for 20 minutes, learning their patterns. Evelyn never stayed in one place for long. She'd talk to a group, then excuse herself and move to another, working the room like a politician, making sure everyone saw her, remembered her, thought well of her. Brandon mostly just stood there looking bored. Around 8, they announced dinner. People started migrating toward the tables. I stayed near my pillar, watching Evelyn take her seat at the head table with the mayor and a few other important-looking people. Brandon sat 2 tables away, separate from his mother. Interesting. I was about to find a quiet corner to wait out the dinner when someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Excuse me, are you the restoration expert?" I turned. A man in his 60s, silver hair, expensive watch, holding a plate of those tiny, expensive foods. "That's me," I said. "Richard Holloway. I own a 62 Mercedes that needs some work. The woman at the door said you might be able to help." We talked for 10 minutes about his car. He wanted a full restoration, was willing to pay top dollar, wanted it done right. I gave him my information and promised to give him an estimate next week. You should come to these things more often, he said. Half the people here have classic cars collecting dust in their garages. You'd make a fortune. After he left, I realized something. I'd been so focused on Evelyn that I'd forgotten the most important rule of information gathering. People love to talk, especially at events like this, where everyone was drinking and showing off and trying to impress each other. I spent the next hour doing exactly what Richard suggested. I worked the room, introduced myself, talked about cars, and listened. By 9:30, I'd learned several interesting things. 1. Evelyn's late husband had been involved in some shady business deals before he died. Nothing illegal exactly, just ethically questionable, the kind of stuff that makes people raise their eyebrows. 2. Evelyn was known for being difficult with the charities she advised. She had strong opinions about how money should be spent. Some people respected that. Others found it controlling. 3. Brandon was generally considered a joke. People tolerated him because of his mother, but nobody took him seriously. And 4, there were rumors that Evelyn was being considered for a position on the hospital board, a very prestigious, very visible position that would give her even more social power. I was processing all of this when I saw my opportunity. Brandon had stepped away from his table and was heading toward the bathroom, alone. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. The bathroom was empty, except for him. He was standing at the sink, splashing water on his face. He looked up when I walked in and froze. "You," he said. "Me." He glanced at the door like he was calculating whether he could get past me. I didn't move. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. Same thing as everyone else. Networking, meeting people, normal charity gala stuff. "You don't belong here. Neither do you, from what I hear." I leaned against the sink counter. "People have been talking about you all night, Brandon. Did you know that? Everyone's wondering why Evelyn's son can't seem to hold down a successful business, why he's burning through money faster than he makes it, why he had to steal his wife's car just to keep up appearances." His face went red. "I didn't steal anything." "Sure you did. And you know what's funny? Nobody here even likes you. They just tolerate you because of your mother. Take her away and you're nothing." Brandon's hands clenched into fists. "You need to leave, now." "Or what? You'll fight me in a hotel bathroom, at a charity gala, in front of all these important people?" I smiled. "Yeah, that'll look great. I'm sure your mother would love explaining that." "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be, because unlike you, I don't have anything to lose. My reputation? Already ruined, according to your mother. My money? Never had much to begin with. My dignity? I stepped closer." That's the thing, Brandon. You can't take something from someone who doesn't care about losing it. He was breathing hard now, angry, scared, cornered. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to give Emily back everything you took from her. Her car, her money, her freedom, and I want you to leave her alone." "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because I need—" He stopped, caught himself. "Because you need the money," I finished for him. "Because you're drowning in debt, and Emily's savings was the only thing keeping you afloat. Because you're not actually a successful businessman, you're just a fraud who's good at pretending." Brandon lunged at me. I was ready for it this time, too. I stepped aside, and he crashed into the paper towel dispenser, sending paper towels everywhere. He spun around, breathing hard, fists still clenched. "You done?" I asked calmly. "I'm going to destroy you. My mother will—" "Your mother is going to be too busy dealing with her own problems to worry about me." I brushed past him toward the door. "Enjoy the rest of the gala, Brandon. I hear the dessert is excellent." I walked out, leaving him standing there in a pile of paper towels. Rick was waiting in the parking lot when I came out. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than expected." I got in the truck. "Got some good information, and I rattled Brandon pretty hard." "Is that smart? Won't he run to his mother?" "I'm counting on it." I buckled my seatbelt. "Because when he does, she's going to overreact. She's going to push too hard, make a mistake, and when she does, I'll be waiting." Rick pulled out of the parking lot. "You're enjoying this?" "Little bit. That's what worries me." He had a point. I was enjoying it. Not the part where my daughter was suffering, not the part where Brandon and his mother had turned her life into a nightmare. But this? The strategy, the confrontation, the slow, careful process of dismantling their power? Yeah, I was enjoying that quite a bit. Because people like Brandon and Evelyn were so used to winning that they'd forgotten what it felt like to lose. And I was going to remind them, in detail. The call came 2 days later. I was in the workshop working on an estimate for Richard Holloway's Mercedes when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Mr. Patterson? A woman's voice, professional, cold. Speaking. This is Margaret Chen from Wilson & Associates. I'm calling on behalf of my client, Evelyn Bradford. She'd like to meet with you to discuss a matter of mutual concern. What kind of matter? She didn't specify, but she stressed that it would be in your best interest to attend this meeting. That sounds like a threat. It's an invitation. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at the Riverside Country Club. Mrs. Bradford will be waiting in the private dining room. And if I don't come, then Mrs. Bradford will assume you're not interested in resolving this situation amicably. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone. So Evelyn wanted to meet, probably to threaten me more directly, maybe to offer some kind of deal. Either way, it was an opportunity. I called Rick. Evelyn wants to meet, I told him. When? Tomorrow afternoon, country club. You going? Of course. Want backup? No. This needs to be one-on-one, but keep your phone on just in case. The next afternoon, I drove to the Riverside Country Club. It was exactly as pretentious as I'd imagined. Manicured lawns, a golf course that probably required more water than a small town, and a building that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought columns automatically meant class. I parked my truck between a Mercedes and a BMW. It looked exactly as out of place as I felt. Inside, I told the host I was meeting Evelyn Bradford. He looked at my work clothes, I hadn't bothered changing, and frowned, but led me through the club to a private dining room in the back. Evelyn was sitting at a table, perfectly composed, sipping what looked like iced tea. Mr. Patterson, she said without standing, thank you for coming. I was curious. Please sit. I sat across from her. The room was small, wood-paneled, with a window overlooking the golf course. Quiet, private. The kind of place where important people made important decisions without anyone listening. Would you like something to drink? Evelyn asked. No. Very well. She set down her tea and folded her hands on the table. I'll get straight to the point. You're becoming a problem. Good. She smiled thinly. That's not the response I expected. What did you expect? That I'd apologize? Promise to back off? I leaned back in my chair. You threatened my daughter. You isolated her. You stole from her. And now you want me to just go away quietly? I haven't stolen anything. Everything Brandon took was legally his as Emily's husband. That's one interpretation. It's the only interpretation that matters. In the eyes of the law, their property is shared. Brandon has every right to make financial decisions for the household. Even when those decisions leave Emily with nothing? Marriage requires sacrifice. Emily understood that when she said her vows. I studied her. She was so calm, so certain, like we were discussing the weather instead of her systematic destruction of my daughter's life. Why did you ask me here? I asked. Because I want to offer you a deal. She pulled a folder from her purse and slid it across the table. Inside, you'll find a settlement agreement. In exchange for you ceasing all contact with Emily and Brandon and agreeing not to interfere in their marriage, I'm prepared to offer you $50,000. I didn't touch the folder. You're trying to buy me off, I said. I'm trying to resolve this situation before it escalates further. You clearly care about Emily. I respect that. But your interference is making things worse for her, not better. Brandon is very stressed. And when he's stressed, he makes poor decisions. Like hitting her? Evelyn's expression didn't change. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. We stared at each other across the table. In that moment, I understood exactly what kind of person Evelyn Bradford was. She wasn't cruel for the sake of cruelty. She wasn't even particularly emotional about it. She was simply someone who'd decided that her son's happiness was more important than anything else, and she'd do whatever it took to protect him, even if it meant destroying Emily. I'm not taking your money, I said. Then you're a fool. Maybe, but at least I can look at myself in the mirror. Evelyn's smile turned colder. You don't understand what you're up against. I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, investigators, connections in every part of the city. If I decide to destroy you, I will. Your business, your reputation, your life, all of it. Go ahead. I will obtain a restraining order against you. I'll make sure Emily understands that any contact with you could result in her losing custody of her son. I'll have Brandon file harassment charges. You'll do what you were always going to do anyway. I stood up. See, that's what you don't understand, Evelyn. You can't threaten someone who's already decided not to back down. All you can do is follow through, and then we'll see who has more to lose. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Evelyn stand. My son loves Emily, she said. In his own way. He just needs time to get back on his feet. If you truly care about your daughter, you'll give him that time. I stopped at the door and looked back at her. Your son is a parasite, I said. He's draining Emily dry to support his failing business and his ego, and you're enabling him because you can't accept that you raised a man who can't stand on his own. I opened the door. But that's not my problem. My problem is getting my daughter away from both of you, and I don't care what I have to do to make that happen. I left her standing there in her private dining room, in her exclusive country club, surrounded by all the trappings of power and respectability. But I'd seen the flicker in her eyes when I'd called Brandon a parasite. Just for a second, she'd looked uncertain. Like maybe, deep down, she knew I was right. That uncertainty was a crack, a small one, but cracks were all I needed, because once you found the crack, you could break the whole thing wide open. I called Rick from the parking lot. How'd it go? He asked. She offered me $50,000 to disappear. Damn, that's actually tempting. Would have been, if I didn't know she'd use it as proof that I was trying to extort her. Smart. So what now? Now we find her crack. Whatever she's hiding. Whatever could bring her whole perfect reputation crashing down. I started my truck. You still digging into her finances? Yeah. Haven't found anything concrete yet, but there's definitely something weird going on with one of the charities she advises. Money's moving in ways that don't quite add up. Keep looking, and while you do that, I'm going to pay a visit to Brandon's office. Is that legal? Does it matter? Rick sighed. You're going to get arrested. Only if I get caught. I hung up before he could argue further. Brandon's office was in a small business complex downtown. According to Rick's research, he hadn't been there much lately. Probably couldn't afford to keep it open much longer. I drove past it once, scoping it out. Second floor, corner unit, blinds drawn. No cars in the parking spots reserved for his business. I parked a block away and walked back. The building had a main entrance that required a key card, but the side door was propped open with a brick, probably for the smokers. I slipped inside and took the stairs to the second floor. The hallway was empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The whole place had that abandoned office building smell. Stale coffee and defeat. Brandon's office was at the end of the hall. The door was locked, but it was a cheap lock. The kind you could open with a credit card if you knew what you were doing. I knew what I was doing. Inside, the office was exactly what I'd expected. Cheap furniture, outdated computer, walls covered in motivational posters about success and leadership. The desk was buried under papers. Bills, mostly. All of them marked past due. I started going through the filing cabinets. Brandon wasn't much for organization. Everything was jumbled together. Client files mixed with bank statements, mixed with random receipts. But after 20 minutes of searching, I found something interesting. A contract. Between Brandon and one of the charities Evelyn advised. He'd been hired to provide consulting services for $60,000. The contract was dated 6 months ago. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of it. Then I kept digging. 10 minutes later, I found the payment records. Brandon had billed the charity for $60,000. They'd paid him. And then, according to his bank statements, he'd immediately transferred $40,000 of it to a private account. Evelyn's private account. I sat back in Brandon's cheap office chair and stared at the papers. This was it. This was the crack. Evelyn wasn't just advising charities. She was using her son to funnel money from them into her own pocket. It was fraud. Not huge fraud, not the kind that makes headlines, but enough to destroy her reputation, enough to get her removed from every board she sat on, enough to end her social power. I took pictures of everything. The contract, the payment records, the bank statements. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it and left. Nobody saw me enter. Nobody saw me leave. By the time I got back to my truck, I was smiling. I didn't tell Emily what I'd found. Not yet. Because the moment I did, she'd tell Brandon. Not intentionally. Not because she wanted to. But because after months of psychological manipulation, her first instinct was still to protect her husband. That would change. But not yet. Instead, I spent the next 2 days putting together my evidence. Rick helped, using his computer skills to create a clear timeline of the money transfers. We had copies of the contracts, the payment records, the bank statements, everything we needed to prove that Evelyn Bradford was using charity money for personal gain. The question was what to do with it. I could go to the police, but that would take time, investigations, lawyers, maybe a trial. And in the meantime, Emily would still be trapped. I could send it to the newspapers. But would they care? This wasn't some massive scandal. It was just a wealthy woman skimming money from charities. Happened all the time. Might not even make the front page, or I could do something more direct. On the third day, I made my decision. I called the director of the Children's Hospital Charity, the same charity that had held the gala I'd attended, the same charity that was considering Evelyn for their board. "Mr. Patterson?" the director said when I identified myself. We'd talked briefly at the gala. "What can I do for you?" "I have some information about Evelyn Bradford that I think you should see." "What kind of information?" "The kind that involves charity money being misused. Can we meet?" There was a long pause. "This is a serious accusation," the director said carefully. "I know. That's why I want to show you the evidence in person, so you can decide for yourself whether it's credible." We met the next morning at a coffee shop downtown. The director was a woman in her 50s named Patricia Ruiz. She'd run the Children's Hospital Charity for 12 years. She had a reputation for being tough but fair. I showed her everything, the contracts, the payments, the transfers. She went through it methodically, asking questions, making notes. When she finished, she looked up at me. "Why are you bringing this to me?" she asked. "Why not go to the police?" "Because the police would take months to do anything about it. And in the meantime, Mrs. Bradford would use her connections to tie everything up in legal battles. But you?" I leaned forward. "You can act immediately. You can remove her from consideration for the board. You can start an internal investigation. You can warn the other charities she's involved with. You understand this will destroy her reputation. That's kind of the point." Patricia studied me for a long moment. "This is personal for you." "Yes." "Why?" I told her, not all of it, just enough. About Emily, about Brandon, about the car and the threats and the systematic isolation, about how Evelyn had used her power to trap my daughter in a nightmare marriage. When I finished, Patricia was quiet. "I have a daughter," she said finally. "If someone did that to her—" She trailed off. Then she gathered up the papers. "I'll look into this, thoroughly. If it's true, Mrs. Bradford will be removed from all positions within our organization, and I'll personally contact the directors of the other charities she's involved with." "How long will that take?" "A week, maybe less." She stood up. "But Mr. Patterson, I need to warn you. If Mrs. Bradford finds out you're behind this, she'll come after you with everything she has." "Let her try." Patricia smiled slightly. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Why not both?" After she left, I sat in the coffee shop for a while, drinking terrible coffee and thinking about what came next. This was the beginning of the end. Once the charity investigation started, Evelyn's perfect reputation would begin to crack. People would start asking questions, looking deeper, finding more problems. And Brandon? Without his mother's backing, without her money and connections, he'd crumble. But I couldn't just sit and wait. I needed to push harder, keep them off balance, make sure they didn't have time to mount a defense. I called Emily. "Dad?" She sounded surprised. We hadn't talked since the subway conversation. "Is everything okay?" "I need you to do something for me." "What?" "I need you to ask Brandon for a divorce." Silence on the other end of the line. "Dad, I can't." "Yes, you can. I know you're scared. I know you think they'll take everything from you, but trust me, Em, the power they have over you is about to disappear. You just need to hold on a little longer." "What did you do?" "Nothing illegal. Just exposed some truth that needed exposing." I paused. "But I need you to make the first move. I need you to tell Brandon you want out. Can you do that?" "He'll tell his mother." "Good. I'm counting on it." Another long silence. "Dad, what if you're wrong? What if they really can take my son away?" "They can't. They never could. That was always a bluff. But you were too scared to call it." I softened my voice. "Emily, I promise you, everything is going to be okay. But you need to trust me. One more time. Can you do that?" I heard her take a deep breath. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." "When?" "Tonight. When he gets home." "Good. And Em? No matter what he says, no matter how he threatens you, don't back down. Stand your ground. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong." "That's okay. You don't have to feel it. You just have to do it." After we hung up, I sat in my truck and waited. Waited for the call that would inevitably come. The call from Brandon, from Evelyn, from someone telling me I'd gone too far. But the call didn't come that night, or the next morning. What came instead was a knock on my workshop door. I opened it to find two men in suits. They showed me badges, detectives. "Mr. Patterson," one of them said, "we need to ask you some questions about a harassment complaint filed by Brandon Holloway." I smiled. "Of course you do. Come on in." The detectives sat in my workshop for an hour. They asked about the confrontation in Brandon's backyard. about the bathroom incident at the charity gala, about my phone calls with Emily, about everything, I answered honestly, because I hadn't actually broken any laws. Mr. Holloway claims you've been stalking him, the younger detective said. He looked tired, like he had better things to do than deal with a domestic dispute. I went to a public party. I attended a public charity event. I called my own daughter. That's not stalking. He says you threatened him. I said his mother would regret treating my daughter badly. That's not a threat. That's a prediction. The older detective, who'd been silent until now, leaned forward. Mr. Patterson, I'm going to be straight with you. Mrs. Bradford has a lot of friends in this city. If she wants to make your life difficult, she can. And honestly, it's not worth it. Whatever's going on between you and your son-in-law, just let it go. Can't do that. Why not? Because my daughter is being abused, financially, psychologically, and probably physically, and I'm not going to stand by and let it happen. The detectives looked at each other. Has your daughter filed a police report? The younger one asked. No. Has she asked for help? Not officially. Then there's nothing we can do. If she wants to press charges against her husband, she can come to the station and file a report, but until then, this is a civil matter. So you're telling me I should just let it happen? I'm telling you that harassment charges can escalate to stalking charges real fast, and stalking is a serious crime. The detective stood up. Stay away from Brandon Holloway and his mother. Stay away from their property. Don't contact them. Don't approach them. Are we clear? Crystal. They left. I sat in my workshop, thinking. This was Evelyn's first real move. She was using the police to try to intimidate me, to make me back off. It was smart. Most people would fold when the cops showed up at their door. But I wasn't most people. I called Rick. Cops just left, I said. What did they want? Brandon filed harassment charges. Evelyn's trying to scare me off. Is it working? What do you think? Rick laughed. So what's the plan? We wait. Patricia Ruiz should be finishing her investigation any day now. Once that hits, Evelyn's going to be too busy putting out fires to worry about me. And if it doesn't hit, if somehow Evelyn manages to make it all go away, then we move to Plan B. What's Plan B? Haven't figured that out yet. That night, Emily called. She was crying. Dad, I did it. I told Brandon I want a divorce. What did he say? He got angry, really angry. He started throwing things, breaking stuff. Then he called his mother and she broke down completely. Em, what happened? They took my son, Brandon and his mother. They came and took him while I was at work. They said I'm an unfit mother, that I'm having a breakdown. They said if I try to fight them, they'll have me committed. My hand clenched around the phone. Where's your son now? At Evelyn's house. They won't let me see him. They said I need to calm down first, that I'm being hysterical. She was gasping between sobs. Dad, what do I do? They took my baby. Where are you right now? At home. Brandon left. He said he's staying at his mother's until I get my head straight. Stay there. Lock the doors. Don't let anyone in. I'm on my way. I drove to Emily's house faster than I probably should have. She let me in, and I saw the damage immediately. Broken plates on the kitchen floor, holes in the walls, a shattered picture frame, evidence of Brandon's tantrum. We need to call the police, I said. No, they'll just take his side. Evelyn has connections, remember? They'll say I provoked him, that I'm unstable. She was probably right, but we needed documentation, evidence, something that showed what Brandon had done. Take pictures, I said, of everything, the broken plates, the walls, all of it, and then write down exactly what happened, when he got angry, what he said, what he broke. We need a record. What good will that do? Trust me. While Emily took pictures and wrote her statement, I looked around the house. It was strange being here. I'd only visited a handful of times since Emily had gotten married. The place had always felt cold to me, sterile, like a showroom instead of a home. Now it just felt empty. I found Emily's laptop in the bedroom, opened it. Brandon hadn't bothered to log out of his email. I probably shouldn't have read it. But I did anyway, and what I found was even worse than I'd expected. Emails to his mother about how to handle Emily, discussions about medication that could make her more compliant, plans to document her erratic behavior in case they needed to fight for custody. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I took pictures of the emails with my phone, then I called Patricia Ruiz. It's Patrick Patterson, I said when she answered. I need to know if you've finished your investigation. I was going to call you tomorrow. We've confirmed that Mrs. Bradford was involved in financial impropriety with 3 different charities. She's been removed from all positions, and we're considering legal action. When will this be made public? The board is meeting tomorrow afternoon to discuss how to handle the announcement. Why? Because I need it to be public soon, like tomorrow soon. Mr. Patterson, these things take time. They just took my grandson from my daughter. They're using the threat of institutionalization to control her. And they're doing it because they think they're untouchable. But if your investigation goes public tomorrow, they'll realize they're not. And my daughter might have a chance of getting her son back. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. I'll see what I can do, she said finally. I hung up and went back to the kitchen. Emily was sitting at the table, staring at her phone like she expected it to ring any second. They're not going to call, I said gently. How do you know? Because they're trying to break you. Calling would give you hope. They want you desperate. It's working. I sat down across from her. Em, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Tomorrow, Evelyn's world is going to start falling apart. The charity investigation is about to go public. Her reputation is going to take a massive hit, and when that happens, she's going to be scrambling to contain the damage. That's when you file for emergency custody. She'll fight it. She will, but she won't win, because we have evidence now. Pictures of what Brandon did to this house. His emails about medicating you and documenting your behavior. The financial records showing they stole your money. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're not alone anymore. You have evidence, you have documentation, and you have me. What if it's not enough? It will be, because the thing about people like Evelyn is that they're only powerful when they control the narrative. Once that narrative cracks, once people start questioning them, they fall apart fast. Emily looked at me with red, exhausted eyes. How did you know this would work? I didn't, not for sure, but I know people like Evelyn. I've dealt with them my whole life, and they all have the same weakness. What? They believe their own lies. They believe they're untouchable. They believe the rules don't apply to them, and that makes them careless. I squeezed her hand. But the rules do apply. To everyone. And Evelyn Bradford is about to learn that the hard way. The next morning, the news broke. The Children's Hospital charity issued a statement announcing that they'd discovered financial improprieties involving one of their former advisors. They didn't name Evelyn directly, but they didn't have to. Within hours, the local news had picked up the story. Within hours, other charities were launching their own investigations. By noon, Evelyn's name was everywhere. By 2 p.m., she'd resigned from all her remaining board positions. By 4 p.m., the country club had quietly suggested she might want to take a temporary break from membership activities. Her perfect reputation, built over decades, crumbled in less than a day. I was in my workshop when Brandon called. You did this. You destroyed my mother. Your mother destroyed herself. I just helped the truth come out. She's getting lawyers. She's going to sue you for defamation. She's going to be too busy trying to stay out of prison to worry about me. I kept my voice calm. But that's not why you called. You called because you know what comes next. What are you talking about? Emily's filing for emergency custody this afternoon, and you're going to give her son back, because if you don't, I'm going to send all those emails you wrote about medicating her to every lawyer in the city, and then I'm going to send them to the newspapers, and by the time I'm done, you won't just be a failed businessman. You'll be a case study in abusive husbands. You're bluffing. Try me. I looked at Rick, who'd been listening to the whole thing. Think he'll fold? Rick asked. He doesn't have a choice. 2 hours later, Emily called. She was crying again, but this time it was different. He brought him back, she said. Brandon brought my son back. He just dropped him off and left. Where are you now? At home, with my son, holding him. Good. Don't let him out of your sight. Tomorrow you file for that emergency custody order, and you file for divorce, and you get a restraining order. You do all of it at once before they have time to regroup. Dad? Her voice was shaking. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. I'm your father. This is what fathers do. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my workshop. The Mustang with the blown transmission was still sitting there, half finished. I'd been working on it for months. Maybe I'd finish it next week. Or maybe I'd find another project. Because right now, all I could think about was the sound of Emily's voice when she'd said thank you, the relief, the hope. That was enough. For now, anyway. 3 days after the charity scandal broke, Evelyn called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I said. To meet. One last time. Her voice was different now, tired, defeated. No lawyers, no threats, just you and me. Why would I do that? Because you've won. You know it. I know it. But there are things you should understand. Things about your daughter's marriage that she hasn't told you. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., the park on Riverside Avenue. She hung up before I could respond. Rick thought I was crazy for going. It's obviously a trap, he said. Probably. But I want to hear what she has to say. Why? Because I need to know if there's anything else I'm missing, anything that could come back to hurt Emily. The park was empty when I arrived the next morning. Just joggers and dog walkers and parents with strollers, normal people doing normal things. Evelyn was sitting on a bench near the pond. She looked smaller somehow, older. The perfect veneer had cracked, and underneath was just a tired woman in expensive clothes. I sat down next to her without saying hello. Thank you for coming, she said. You have 5 minutes. My son loves Emily. I know you don't believe that. I know you think he's a monster. But he does love her, in his way. He's just... She trailed off. He's weak, always has been. His father was the strong one. And when his father died, Brandon couldn't handle it. He fell apart. Started making bad decisions, bad investments. I tried to help. I tried to guide him. But everything I did just made it worse. This isn't my problem. No, it's mine, and I accept that. She looked at me. But I want you to understand something. When I threatened you, when I tried to control Emily, I wasn't doing it to be cruel. I was trying to protect my son. Because without me, he's nothing. He'll lose everything, and I couldn't bear to watch that happen. So you destroyed my daughter instead. I made a choice, a terrible choice, and I'll have to live with that. She stood up slowly. But I want you to know that I'm done. I'm not going to fight the custody case. I'm not going to contest the divorce. I'm going to let Emily go. Because you're right. She deserves better than this. I studied her face. She looked sincere. But people like Evelyn were good at looking sincere. What's the catch? I asked. No catch, just a request. She pulled an envelope from her purse and set it on the bench between us. There's a check inside, for Emily. It's everything Brandon took from her, plus interest, and a little extra for the trouble we've caused. I picked up the envelope. Why? Because I can't undo what I've done, but I can try to make it right, in some small way. This doesn't change anything. I know, but it's all I have left to offer. She walked away before I could respond. I watched her disappear into the morning joggers and dog walkers, just another person in the park. I opened the envelope. The check was for $200,000. I called Emily. Your mother-in-law just gave me a check for $200,000, I said. What? Why? She said it's everything Brandon took from you, plus extra. She's not going to fight the custody or divorce. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Is this real? She asked finally. I think so, but we'll verify every dollar before you cash it. Dad, is it over? Yeah, Em, I think it is. That night, I went to Brandon's house, the one he'd shared with Emily. The one where he'd broken plates and punched walls and terrorized my daughter. He was packing, boxes everywhere, looking defeated and small. What are you doing here? He asked when he saw me. Just wanted to see how you're doing. I'm leaving, moving to another state, starting over. Good idea. He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not anger, not arrogance, just resignation. You destroyed my life, he said. No, I just exposed it. You destroyed your own life, you and your mother. She's being investigated by the state attorney general. They think she embezzled over $1 million from various charities over the past 5 years. She'll probably go to prison. That's unfortunate. You don't care. You're right. I don't. I stepped closer. But I want you to understand something, Brandon. What happened to you? What happened to your mother? That wasn't revenge. That was consequence. You spent years treating my daughter like she was your property. You stole from her. You threatened her. You isolated her from her family. And you thought there would be no price to pay? I loved her. No, you didn't. Love doesn't look like what you did. Love doesn't control and manipulate and destroy. I paused. But maybe you'll figure that out someday. When you're older, when you've had time to think about what you've lost. I turned to leave. Wait, Brandon said. Does she hate me? I thought about that. About Emily and all the conversations we'd had. About how she'd cried and been scared and broken down. No, I said finally. She doesn't hate you. She just doesn't think about you at all. And that's so much worse. I left him there with his boxes and his regrets. 2 weeks later, Emily moved into a new apartment. I helped her carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs. My knee complained the whole time, but I didn't care. She was smiling. Actually smiling. Her son was running around the empty living room, laughing and playing, making it feel like home. "Thank you, Dad," Emily said when we finished the last box. "You already thanked me." "I know, but I mean it. You saved my life. You saved my son's life." "I didn't save anything. You did. You stood up. You fought back. I just gave you the tools." "Still." She hugged me tight. "Thank you." I hugged her back. My daughter. Free, safe, starting over. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about destruction. It wasn't about making people suffer. It was about balance, about restoring what had been taken, about making sure the people you loved were safe. I'd gotten my revenge, not by hurting Brandon or Evelyn, but by making sure they could never hurt Emily again. That afternoon, I went back to my workshop. Rick was waiting for me. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Good. She's settled. Happy. The divorce is moving forward. Brandon's leaving the state. Evelyn's facing charges. So it's done?" "It's done." Rick pulled out 2 beers from my shop fridge, handed me one. "To consequences," he said. "To consequences." We drank in comfortable silence. Outside, the industrial neighborhood was settling into evening. The sun was dropping behind the old warehouses. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew. Everything was exactly as it should be. 2 months later, I got a letter from Emily. It was on nice paper, handwritten, the kind of thing people used to do before text messages. "Dad," it read, "I just wanted you to know that my son asked about you today. He wanted to know where Grandpa was. I told him you were working. He said you should come over for dinner, so I'm inviting you. This Saturday, 6 p.m. Nothing fancy, just us, your family. Please come. Love, Emily." I folded the letter carefully and put it in my pocket. Saturday came. I showed up at Emily's apartment with flowers and a bottle of wine. She answered the door with my grandson on her hip. "Grandpa," he shouted. "Hey, buddy." We ate dinner, just the 3 of us, spaghetti and meatballs, Emily's specialty. We talked about normal things, work and daycare and the leak in her bathroom ceiling that the landlord kept promising to fix. We didn't talk about Brandon or Evelyn or anything that had happened, because it was over. Finally, completely over. After dinner, I helped Emily wash dishes while my grandson played with blocks in the living room. "Dad," Emily said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Did you ever think about giving up? When things looked bad? When it seemed like Evelyn had too much power? Did you ever think about just walking away?" I dried a plate carefully before answering. "No," I said finally. "Never once." "Why not?" I looked at her. My daughter, standing in her kitchen in her apartment with her son playing in the next room, free, safe, whole. "Because you're my daughter," I said, "and fathers protect their daughters, no matter what, no matter who they have to go through, no matter what it costs." I set the plate down. "That's not negotiable. That's just what fathers do." Emily hugged me then. Not the desperate hug from before, but the kind of hug that said everything was going to be okay. And it was. I stayed until my grandson's bedtime, read him 3 books about trucks and dinosaurs, watched him fall asleep clutching his favorite stuffed animal. Then I drove home through the quiet streets, past the subway station where I'd first seen Emily, past the workshop where I'd planned everything, past all the places that had been part of this story. And I thought about Brandon, wherever he was now, about Evelyn, facing her legal troubles, about all the people who'd helped them, enabled them, look the other way while they destroyed my daughter's life. I didn't feel bad for them, not even a little bit, because sometimes justice looks like revenge, and sometimes revenge looks like justice, and sometimes they're exactly the same thing. I parked my truck in front of my workshop, sat there for a moment in the darkness. Then I got out and unlocked the door. The Mustang was still there, waiting. I'd finish it tomorrow, or next week, whenever I felt like it, because right now I had something better than a restoration project. I had my daughter back, and my grandson, and my self-respect. Brandon and Evelyn had tried to take everything from Emily. They'd tried to break her, control her, destroy her. But they'd forgotten one thing. She had me, and I don't lose. Ever. I looked at the photo of Emily and my grandson that I kept on my workbench, both of them smiling, happy, free. "Don't worry," I said quietly to no one. They'll regret it. And they did.